Okay.
Okay,
Of what our cold open would be. Me and you are roughly 3 months apart. Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enough of that. It's the last time we're going to talk about it. So I think we would go to Hogwarts at the same time.
Really, even with the age gap thing.
I think so. I mean, we
'Cause
were
that was-
great off, right?
That was a very real issue we faced with the U.S. public school system, where my birthday was too
LAUSD
late.
is fantastic.
Hashtag get them. Our birthday was a couple months off, but they made me wait a full year to start with the next grade of kids. And ever since then, I graduated a year behind you, even though we're like right neck and neck.
In this scenario, we go to Hogwarts at the same time. I feel like we're on the train together. Maybe we even do like the little, the thing that was her name McGonagall, where she like talks to everyone. Maggie Smith talks to everyone. I feel like we do that together. My concern is that we will not be sorted in the same house, and then I wouldn't see you again for 5 years.
Which, I mean, yeah, like how often are you running into other students in other houses? I'm sure they're like mixed classes, but that would suck to like, oh, I've got PE first period. I've got.
They don't do PE? Well, I think they have Quidditch class or something.
They had a flight class. Remember?
All those British kids are pretty thin, so they're doing something.
Very true.
Or just not eating. I mean, I don't know.
Have you seen the food?
There's a lot of food at Hogwarts.
A lot of food, but a lot of British food. And I wouldn't want to be eating was it mushy peas?
British food is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible for the diet. It's terrible for the eyes. Pretty much a full sensory piece of shit. Like it's all bad. It's to all the senses. So I think I don't want to talk about this. I mean, I'm going to talk about it like right up top.
Right.
Not many or any Mexicans in all of Harry Potter. I was looking and there wasn't one.
Have you checked the Pottermore school locations? I don't think there is a Latin America one.
No, there is not. The closest one is like Philadelphia. Maybe we could do like a East LA version.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That would be nice.
Secretly like hidden under Echo Park or something.
Yeah, that would be nice. You're like, all the bodies that are in the what's that pond? The where you
MacArthur Pond or something?
No, where you ride the ducks, the swans.
I think that's Echo Lake.
Echo Lake.
Echo Park Lake, maybe?
It just opens up like Batman's lair and you just go down there.
But you have to be going in on a lowrider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of classic car.
That's racist. But yeah, I think we would do well. I would hope to see. I think, okay, for starters, me and you are probably both Hufflepuffs. I've taken the quiz a couple of times now because I'm not gonna lie, work's been pretty slow for like so. I've got a little bit of Ravenclaw in there, but majoritively it's Hufflepuff. So if we got in Hufflepuff together, it's a lock. We're gonna do great. Not too worried about it, but
I feel like we'd be Fred and George of our era.
I think so too. I think we wouldn't make many friends. I feel like when we're together, it's hard for us to make friends now in the Muggle world. So, anyways, that's just a little bit of that's just what I've been thinking about. I wouldn't want to go to Hogwarts without you, and I wouldn't want to wait. So I would probably ask to be held back a year.
Really?
Because then I could beat up all the other kids.
I'm honored. That's very true. Yeah, you'd come in at least a full head taller than everybody else.
Bruiser in the brain. That's what we do. Even though you're like 2 inches taller than me.
It's true.
When you stand up straight. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm sure you're wondering what we're talking about. If it isn't obvious, right above Daniel's beautiful haircut there. It is Harry Potter. We're doing a box office breakdown. Talking about the Harry Potter films. Why? Because it is Christmas time, and Harry Potter and that entire franchise are Christmas films. They are Christmas films, right? Like
I would say so. They feature Christmas every year.
They sure do, don't they? Well, not every year. I did look. I don't really think Half-Blood Prince goes into it, but that's a pretty depressing movie.
That sure is. Tonally, that's where it just left field.
Not a lot of gifts. but a lot of unwrapping of bodies.
Oof.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you're here, if you've already found us, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're watching this after the fact, and me and Daniel are already massively famous, congratulations on finding us so early on. I know it's hard to find YouTubers that you guys like, but you found them. It's us, and you like us. Daniel, use your. You know what? You know what I was also thinking about? We didn't get any Harry Potter shit.
We didn't. No, we briefly discussed getting the sweaters, but
We did, but then I thought I'd never wear it again.
yeah, honestly.
And I'm in my minimalist era right now.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
like, I wear the same stuff all the time. I was like, I can't justify really having it. So welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys so much. We're going to get into the box office breakdown of the Harry Potter franchise. Just the Harry Potter films. We're not going to do Fantastic Beasts because that's another 4 films. 4 films?
3.
Oh, okay. But well, we can talk about that. I don't mind them probably as much as you do, but I'm also a very moderate, like I'm a very, as the kids say, tip of the iceberg Harry Potter fan. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. I didn't even know what Pottermore was. I'm a millennial and I don't have a Deathly Hallows tattoo. Made it out alive.
Not that as a win, because we know far too many people that do.
We do, yes. And they are naming their kids Lucius and Luna and Lovegoods. Ooh. And getting married, like having gorilla weddings at a at the, what was it, the park, the Universal Studios park. But
I think you meant like a gorilla, like a silverback.
Maybe. It's very possible. All sorts of weird shit is happening. But thank you guys so much. Dwayne, hello. Hi, Alexis. Hey, everyone. Welcome in. Me and Daniel kind of knew this may be a slow show because people are with their families.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, that's some shit.
I thought we were family per the corporate email that went out.
Yes. We sent you guys all points that can be redeemed by December 22nd. That was Sunday. We sent that email on Sunday. So if you didn't, yeah, Dwayne, welcome. Fellow nerd and loser, just like us. Well, really quick, what we wanted to do, we're hoping to do this with more people, but we'll do it now. And again, if you're watching this after the fact, do it then. A quick cheers. We grabbed some holiday drinks to sort of send off our very last show of the year with you guys. Again, just thank you guys so much for watching, whether you watched once or you watched every show. It really, really means the world to us. Maybe one day we'll get the whole gang back together, but until then, you're stuck with which one am I? The bruiser in the brain there.
Bruiser in the brain.
Yeah, I think we can fuck some people up at Hogwarts.
I think so.
Seem like very strong kid. They seem malnourished. So thank you guys so much. Cheers. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
This is strong. It's a peppermint.
What are you drinking?
It's a peppermint espresso martini with churro, like eggnog liqueur in it. Ooh. It's delicious, but it is strong as the
It sounds very sweet. It sounds like there's a lot going on flavor wise, but very like holiday in a cup.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something Bobby Flay would love.
I'm imbibing in a
whole bottle.
I do have the whole bottle. I was in a rush to grab a drink, and so I real quick. But yeah, it's some kind of. Oh, it is a sparkling wine. Forgive me, not a champagne.
That's just champagne. That's just champagne. you first of all, you're drinking out of a bottle on a Monday, so let's not get fancy.
But it's a holiday Monday. It's Christmas Eve.
Honestly, it doesn't count. I don't even know what day it is. But all right, with that, let's get to the box office breakdown of the Harry Potter franchise. Essentially, what this is we're going to go from the first movie to the very last movie, talk about how much the movie made, some of the controversies and successes around that film, and some of the other films that came out around that movie. And we're just going to kind of move through them because this espresso martini is starting to kick. And, Daniel says if I say one more dumb thing, he's going to kick me off the show. So with that, let's get into it. All right, Daniel, you're going to bring up the first one. I think everyone's maybe seen this movie, but the first film in the Harry Potter franchise is, of course, the Sorcerer's Stone, released November 16th, 2001. Jesus, 2001,
2001. I remember seeing this in
Daniel.
theaters.
I don't.
Really.
I do not remember seeing this in theaters. However, this is the best poster of the entire franchise.
Agreed.
Hands
Hard
down.
agree.
Hands down. So directed by Chris Columbus, this film, again, we are talking the box office numbers of these films, earned $1 billion posthumously, because it did eventually get to the billion mark, but it didn't get there. That's also adjusted for inflation. So it did hit $1 billion. This makes it the second largest earning of the franchise. Around it, though, this is my favorite part of looking these up, is like what was released around these films. And what you're going to see is that like a lot of franchises and a lot of Philosopher's Stone to the Prince, but we don't care about them. Literally, I'm not afraid of one British person. It's the Sorcerer's Stone. So there is a really interesting shift that you start to see happen around the middle of the franchise, where these big IPs start moving away from the Harry Potter franchise because they're afraid of it. It's a massive movie. It's a massive franchise. And why would you want to open up around this massive franchise? So the two movies that I felt were of import to Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone was Monsters, Inc.
Wow.
Massive film.
Obviously. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It ended up being a massive film, but it lost out to Harry Potter. And Shallow Hal. Now, the reason I brought up Shallow Hal was because Shallow Hal was the second highest earning in November. It was the fourth highest earning movie of the year. And this is really one of the last times that you're going to see these one-off comedy films being in the top 10 of these box office numbers towards the end of the year, because from, I'm going to say 2003 and on, you're going to start to see a pattern of these big IPs and these franchises really just running the floor of the box office. So it was rated a 7.7 out of 10, 700,000 reviews. These are according to IMDb. If you guys have watched this, I like IMDb preferably because those are individual reviews as well. And then a couple of plot points to this. I didn't really want to write too many because it's the first movie. It introduces us to the wizarding world, the boy who lived, and all sorts of other things that sort of have become synonymous with Harry Potter now. But this is the first one. I've seen this a few times now, Daniel, but like, again, back to your point, I don't remember watching this in theaters.
Really? Yeah, I remember.
I don't.
I was taken to this film by some cousins or something that like wanted to, I don't know, like hang out, meet up. I must have been, God, it was 8. I think I was 8 at the time when this came out. And we went and saw this at the Dolby Theater with like where they have the Oscar ceremony.
Oh, yeah. Is that not the Chinese theater anymore?
I don't think so. But at the time, I remember distinctly that there was 2 big Oscar statues on either side of the screen. And so I knew like we were in a place of great import.
Please stop bowing to the statues, Daniel. We don't do that here.
But yeah, crazy to think that this movie came out the same year as Monsters, Inc., which I mean everyone knows now is a huge Disney film. It's a pillar of Pixar. So crazy to think that this beat it out. But I mean, I think it goes to show the weight that Harry Potter had, like even then when this first film came out.
Yeah. Dwayne says, I need to watch them again. I only watched them once. So I've rewatched them all, and my girlfriend loves them. So we rewatch them kind of like all the time, but just like certain ones. The first 4, I think, are fucking art. Like, okay. I think the first 4 are really great. 5th one's okay. 7th one's okay. They do start becoming a little bit, what do you call it? Franchisee. That's not a word, but homogenous. Yeah, that's probably a better word. That's why you're the brain than on the Brond. I'm the bruiser. But it definitely becomes homogenized. Yeah, where you're just like, oh man, this is just like one color palette. Like there's no distinct artistic vision behind a lot of these films. But the first 4 feel like Harry Potter, but a different filter or a different lens or different perspectives on them from a different creator. So, yeah, so the first one, again, really cannot understate how important this film was to film. And some people, either whether this film or the Fellowship of the Ring,
Oh wow.
say that it really was the catalyst for the IP-ness of no, I said penis. For the the franchisation, the franchisation of Hollywood. Like, this is where it starts in 2001. And once you get to 2010 and 11, like, you're like, whoa, we are in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
But 2001 is truly like a new milestone for Hollywood.
And you know what? I think Warner Brothers knew they had like a hit on their hands. Cause I mean, at the time, like when the first movie came out, the first 3 books were out and they were like widely successful. Like like there was a Harry Potter phenomena going on with the books. And I think that really drove Warner Brothers like, oh, okay, this book series is popping off. Like, let's do something with it.
Yeah, I agree. Alexa said we are now demonetized because we said penis. Oh. In our defense, we've said much worse. So, all right. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the first movie because, contrary to popular belief, while it is important, it's not all that interesting within the mechanism of Hollywood. It was a pretty important film. It sort of rang in fantasy, but I truly think from the second, third, and fourth film on is when things start getting kind of nuts for Harry Potter. So with the second film, of course, released November 15th, 2002, almost a year to the date to get our film back to back. We've got The Chamber of Secrets, directed by Chris Columbus again. Now this made about $882 million, and it released alongside some pretty important films, I think, that people still watch today. We've got Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, Die Another Day, which of course is a Die Hard threequel. I think it's like the third in the franchise. I think this is the one with Justin Long.
No, I think Die Another Day is a James Bond film.
What am I thinking of? Oh, isn't Die Hard? Die Hard with a Vengeance is what I'm thinking of.
Or like Live Free and Die Hard. One of those. I think they started playing with the
I thought it was like Die Hard Today. That's why I thought this was a Die Hard movie. But the other one that I thought was pretty important to add in here was 8 Mile, because it's really the first step that you see Hollywood trying to say, like, okay, yes, it is 007. It's been a while, okay? Also, another pop culture blind spot for me, 007. I've only seen one of them.
Are you serious?
Seriously.
Okay. Well, we'll have to do a box office breakdown because
I've seen this one. Oh, that's not even James Bond. That's what's his name?
Henry Cavill.
Tom Cruise. No, Tom Cruise.
Oh, Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. So I've seen Spectre.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that Rocky? It wasn't Rocky. Okay, guys. Talking about Harry Potter. Fuck. So we've got, so The Chamber of Secrets again, but also released alongside 8 Mile. So 8 Mile, the reason I found this interesting and I wanted to add it in was because I think Hollywood and a lot of these directors or producers or the suits in Hollywood who are seeing the direction that Harry Potter was going, that it just swept the box office, was like, we need to get something in there. And while this movie was already in development, they really, really pushed hard on 8 Mile because Eminem was sort of at the top of his game, and he was at the top of his game celebrity-wise. He hadn't released anything in a while, but they did want him to star in this film and direct this film. Originally, he didn't want to direct it because he's like, I'm not a director. So directed by someone else, but they tried to attach like pre-existing star power to a film to combat, I think, the franchisation of what Hollywood is sort of steering towards. So I just thought that was interesting that you really see a lot less of that going forward. Not none, but less. Because
I'm looking at the list of like other movies that came out around the other Harry Potter films released, and it's a lot of sequels. You know, there's like
Mhm.
Pirates 3, Rush Hour 3. You know, that you
Once
really start to see the sequelification of
once
Hollywood.
we get to the next movie and you're like, "Oh my god, these are all like the third movies," and this it's like just
Mhm.
franchise popcorn everywhere, just all over the place. So 7.4 out of 10. One of the I think actually Chamber of Secrets is technically the lowest rated of the Harry Potter franchise films across Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. Again, I like IMDb because it's got like this aggregate system where it counts individual users and not necessarily Metacritic. So, 700,000 people have reviewed it, sitting at about 7.4. That's the lowest of all of them, Daniel. Like it's
And 7.4 being the lowest is pretty good still.
That's very, very good. I was thinking that as well. Where like if you look at some of the other franchises, like that would be in here, like like Pirates or Hunger Games, like they've got some sixes in there.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Yeah,
for 8 films, that's it's a pretty good average.
yeah, it's a very good average. So, but some really interesting things that start to happen here is the expansion of the wizarding world. I feel is pretty prominent in this film, with
Mhm.
Dobby heading to the Dursleys. We get Tom Riddle's diary. They fight the basilisk, and we get them freeing Dobby. Dobby is a free elf, and he gets the sock, but you also learn that Harry might be like the heir of Slytherin.
Yeah, this is where they start to like sprinkle in a little bit more of the mystery.
Yeah. And I think this is where it starts moving it starts slithering into the direction of being a little bit more preteen, not like a kid's book.
Mhm.
Um it absolutely it did. And then once we get to the third movie, which we can get into right now, I think the change is crazy. This is also the last movie that Chris Columbus directs, who I thought did a fantastic job with the first. Again, I think the first 4 movies are pretty great, with the next movie being The Prisoner of Azkaban, released June 4th, 2004. This one is directed by the incredible Alfonso Cuarón, who has made like Academy Award winning movies and kind of did this movie relatively off the cuff.
I believe this was the film that like Guillermo del Toro was in talks to directing too.
Yeah, Del Toro was in talks to do a few of them. He really wanted to come in and
Oh,
do the Deathly Hollows as
ooh,
well.
that would have been good.
Him and M Night.
Uh,
I
I
know,
mean,
dodged a bullet with M Night, and maybe Guillermo. But yeah, I didn't know. Did he want to do the third one as well?
I believe so. I believe from what I was like, I was starting to look into like the behind the scenes of a lot of the films, and they started to blend together. But yeah, there was
Mhm.
one point where Alfonso Cuarón brought on Guillermo del Toro, or was like consulting with him to kind of like figure out his direction for what he was going to do with the movie. But
Yeah.
he had already signed on to be the director for the film.
Mm.
So in a way, he got a little Guillermo del Toro consultation in there.
Honestly, a Del Toro Harry Potter film would have been incredible.
Yeah, yeah. But
I
I
mean,
really love what Alfonso Cuarón did with this one. This is
yeah,
the one with Time Turner. This is the one with the where the whole story kind of loops on itself after a certain point.
yeah, and it's
Love
the
it.
introduction of Sirius Black, which was like a really crucial character for Harry
Mhm.
because I think he's like this morally ambiguous character, which
Yeah,
he's not like he's good from our perspective, but from the journey that Sirius Black took to get to that point where like I'm a good guy, he did a lot of bad shit.
yeah. Which I mean, it kind of it speaks to like the being the gray zone where like a vigilante would kind of sit because yeah, like you said, like he definitely didn't do things by the book, but
Mhm.
in the end, at the end of the day, he was working towards like a positive goal, a positive
Yeah,
end.
I think truly, and again, we'll do our best, but like it's going to be kind of near impossible to not mention J.K. Rowling during
Oof,
this.
no.
Again, your scar burns. uh, she wrote the books, so whatever. I think this is brilliant writing on our part because I think this starts to get our palette ready for Snape, and being like, oh man, like the things you're willing to forgive for people who are doing these things like for the characters you love.
Yeah.
Um, and again, if you aren't familiar, like, so this movie just felt artistically like it was one of the best that was delivered. Again, Alfonso Cuarón is an amazing director. You've definitely heard of some of his movies, from Gravity, Y tu mamá también, Children of Men, Roma. Like, I mean, he's a legend. And kind of did this as like a weird side quest. Yeah, Dwayne says a lot of people consider these kids movies. The first one was really the only fully kids movie. I agree.
Mhm.
After, like, once it hits like Prisoner of Azkaban, like I wouldn't show anyone like under 8, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely starts moving in like a more dark direction, like tonally. But I feel like it's something we didn't really like notice per se as kids because we like grew up with it.
With
Right.
it. Yeah, it was perfect.
I mean, it was directly aimed at like our age group, and we were like truly the target audience.
Well, this is an interesting film as far as the box office breakdown goes, and that's because this is technically the lowest earning of all the films at just over 808 million. Again,
Only
yeah,
800.
nothing to complain about, but of all of them, it's the lowest earning. And here is what I thought was interesting. Like, these are the most popular movies of that year that released around Prisoner of Azkaban, whether within a month apart or just in general. So the other biggest movies of that year and around that movie were Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2,
Dang.
The Bourne Supremacy, which I think is the second of them,
Maybe.
and then Troy, which
with like Brad Pitt
with Brad Pitt. So like,
wow, Hector.
Yeah, that's why no one will remember your name. So I think, again, just take notice of the shift that starts to happen around some of the biggest movies of that year and around the time of the release of these Harry Potter films, because it really just becomes super franchised. Troy being, again, the outlier, but that movie really had the star power. Like, that Brad Pitt held that movie on his beautiful shoulders. Like, he did.
There was some
Not
other
that
big names in that too. Wasn't like
Right.
Christian Bale in that, or big name?
No, Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom.
Not that they weren't big, but Orlando Bloom, while yes, he was in Two Towers and like he was pretty big, he was still the elf guy. Like, Brad Pitt was Brad Pitt. And Orlando people were there, like, I guess, for Orlando Bloom, but like, it had Brian Cox in it. Brian Cox is of Succession. He plays, I think, Agamemnon, and I love that. I love that movie so much. That movie.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh my god, Daniel, you need to see it.
All right, I'll put it on my list.
L's in the chat for Daniel because he's never seen it. Honestly, it's really you should watch that tonight. Yeah. So again, rated at a 7.9 though out of 10, one of the higher films. Again, we get the introduction of Sirius Black, the Marauders map, which of course is used throughout the entire series, the Time Turner where they save Buckbeak, and also we get Lupin, and where they save not Buckbeak. What is it? Where they have Lupin and the introduction of the Patronus charm, which I felt was like becomes very, very crucial to a lot of the film and people's identities. And they're like, I wonder do you know what your Patronus is?
I want to say it was like an otter or something. I did the Pottermore charm.
I get that.
The Pottermore quiz. And I want to say I got like an otter or something.
Mine's a mole.
A mole?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's Marilyn Monroe's mole. Specifically just her mole. But yeah, and then also though, this is the one. Can you bring up the poster again, Daniel? This is the one with the terrible hair.
And you know what? Even this
is a good picture. Yeah, this is a good. I'm surprised we don't have a picture of it. But Prisoner of Azkaban, while it is a great film, it is the one with the most terrible hair. They all have such bad hair.
I disagree. I think it's the next one. I think Goblet of Fire really has where everyone needed a haircut and nobody.
Oh, it might be this one. I'm sorry. I may have gotten that wrong. This one's so bad. It's definitely Goblet of Fire, and I wrote it in the wrong column.
It's the year nobody got haircuts, and
yeah. And
Crazy, but thankfully
it
they
is
rectify
crazy.
that within the next film.
Yeah. Well, perfect segue into our next film, which is the fourth in the franchise, and we get a new director. This is The Goblet of Fire, released November 18th of 2005. Directed by Mike Newell, who had done very like small, in my opinion, like smaller things. He'd done a few like rom-coms, and he'd done some TV pilots, but nothing that I found to be like too huge.
Yeah.
Made 897 million, that released around the time of Chronicles of Narnia, the first movie.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So
That's another like book series that really had some weight behind it.
yeah, which is, if you watch it again, holds up. It's not too bad.
Narnia, really?
No, it's not too bad. The first one, the one where they bring in, what's his name? Caspian?
Yeah.
Oh, Caspian? Yeah, that one sucks. I think that one sucks, but
yeah. Oh yeah. What's his name's in that too? Poulter. Something Poulter.
Mm-hmm. And
not Ann Coulter.
and Coulter.
Will Poulter.
Will Poulter. Yeah, I've never read Narnia. I'm not a book person. I don't know. Also, I don't know about a lot of you guys. Like, if you read the books, like, let us know in the chats. But like, I read all of them up until The Goblet of Fire, actually. And then after that, I was like, "There's movies? The hell am I reading for?"
I'm not ashamed to admit I read them out of order. I don't know what happened in, I don't know, like
you must have been very confused.
Kind of, yeah. But you know what? It was also one of those like reads that it took me a year to read it. And I think by the time I finished it, I was like, what even happened at the beginning? I couldn't tell you. But it wasn't until I was a full-grown adult, I think I was like 21 or 22 when I like went back to reread them, that I finally like understood like, oh, I definitely did this out of order. It makes way more sense when you read them start to front.
Harry was just 36. Why is he 9 or 11? I think these movies started when he's 11.
I think so. I actually have a photo from when the cast was first announced, and they were babies.
Oh my God.
Crazy to think. And like, I mean, they must have been what, 8 or 9, 10, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think they were probably, well, yeah, I think he was cast at 9. They didn't start filming till he was 10. The movie came out when he was 11. And that's why the first couple, Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, were filmed back to back, and then Prisoner of Azkaban, they had like a 6 or 7 month break because they were truly worried about them aging.
Yeah.
We'll show what they look like at the end, but they I mean, people age pretty quick, and it happens to be quite a problem. Just like my example is always Walking Dead. Like, they took some time off, and then Carl looks like a grown ass man.
Oh yeah,
he's like, I am 12. But again, we've got the Goblet of Fire. The other movie that it released around was Chicken Little, which I thought was like a weird movie that was released around it, and the movie got like buried under it, but has a much better rating, way more views, and everything on IMDb. So I just found that to be kind of interesting.
Who knows? Maybe that was like a Disney Hail Mary. I remember watching Chicken Little for sure, but I couldn't. I mean, obviously we all know the story, but it didn't really like stand out. It doesn't stick with me. It's one of those that like I've long forgotten it now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think too. I don't think that was. Oh, it was Disney. Wow, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that was Disney. I thought that was like a Universal or something. But
fun fact, I remember watching. I think it was like Bare Naked Ladies. The band did a song for the Chicken Little movie, and they were doing like the band doing the song on Disney Channel or something, and they couldn't use their name. Like they called them BNL.
The Bear. Oh yeah, I get it.
Bare Naked Ladies.
We just couldn't handle it, honestly. We just couldn't handle the word naked.
No, absolutely not.
Kids were going to start asking questions. But yeah, again, huge film. Probably to me, probably my favorite.
Goblet of Fire, really?
Yeah, I like it. Other than the hair, I think it's like it's just got the most. It's just got the most like wizarding world, which I like.
Okay. Yeah,
it's not. It's pretty Harry focused of course, but
Mhm.
once you bring in the other schools, because this is the film with the Triwizard Tournament,
Right.
obviously the death of Cedric Diggory, and of course, like the official return of
That would have for
Voldemort,
Disney Channel, it would have absolutely worked.
the Bare Necessity ladies. They're like, I don't know, it just feels misogynistic to say that.
But
um,
but I agree. This is where like this is the film where they finally like they bring in the big bad that they had been like slowly teasing in the first
yeah.
3 movies at this point.
Mhm.
Prisoner of Azkaban, we really didn't get to see any of like Voldemort. It was like the mystery of like, oh, they're working to bring him back. Like really like hadn't developed into like an actual villain yet. And then
Yeah.
Goblet of Fire is where we get the first death of like a student.
Mhm.
Because so far,
Freaking
like,
Batman.
and it's Batman, no
Yeah.
less. Edward Cullen, really.
Whatever.
But yeah, I feel like this is where it's like, oh, like it really is like where the shit hits the fan, and the
Mhm.
Wizarding world is like, they have no choice but to accept the fact that like Voldemort's back, even though they don't. But
To me, this is the last film that is happy.
yeah, and from here
Like,
on out, it's like struggle bus central for the main gang. Um, hello,
what
what
up,
up?
dude? How's it going? We're talking
Welcome to
Harry
Harry
Potter.
Potter night.
Yeah, so again, for me, Goblet of Fire is the last film that's like happy, where I feel like in all of these movies, right, the tension progresses more and
Mhm.
more and more. And these moments of cheer and magic are interrupted by like this overarching, big bad story. But I feel like the tipping point happens to me at this film when Cedric Diggory dies, where you're like, oh, this is like real and there are real stakes to
Yes.
this.
Yeah, I feel like that's
And
when like the threat becomes real to like the cast,
yeah,
because up until
and
this point, like what's his name? The kids had fought the basilisk and like that thing froze, petrified a couple students, but like they came back, nobody died. So this is
yeah.
where it was like a permadeath.
Hmm. I also found it interesting, and I wrote this down, that this was, again, looking a little bit more into the production of the film. This is the last film that was filmed at the University of Oxford, which was Hogwarts for the other previous films, um, including like a majority of like the architecture and of course the Great Hall. From here on out until a little bit later for some scenes, it's all in like a studio. Like they just built it all in a studio, and
Wow.
it may lead to some of the people feeling like Goblet of Fire is like the last true. I forget like the word that this like they use specifically, but like from up until Goblet of Fire, they all felt like Harry Potter uh, books that were brought to screen, and to some of the fans of the books, they felt like going forward, they were all movies that happened to be based off Harry Potter.
Hard agree. I feel like this is where you start to see the shift in like the filmmaking too. This was the era. Digital filming was starting to like become bigger. Like they have definitely moved away from like traditional film stock. So
Oh yeah.
lighting techniques were different, blocking techniques were different. All the equipment could have been different. Definitely like starting to see a shift in like the color palette too. I feel like this is where the movies become a lot more like gray and blue and less
Yeah.
warm. Like you said, less happy. This is where like the adulting starts to kick in.
Yeah. If you look at to be millennial about it, adulting, right? If you look, okay, well, I'm gonna bring up the poster for the first one.
Mhm.
It just has like an energy, like a framing about it, and it just feels it it feels happy. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like it feels a little optimistic, a little stern. But once you get to like Goblet of Fire, like you see like the color palette is this blue
Yeah.
for a majority of them. And you've got green here, but this really focuses on the cast of characters, and it really moves away to just them. Um, and the posters, and these are the official posters, of course, from Warner Brothers, like that shift, you feel it. And The films, I think, represent that. So, moving into the fifth in the series, of course, we have The Order of the Phoenix released in July. It's the first movie released in July so far. Uh, the rest, they've been in November and then one in June. But this is the introduction, the first time we get Mr. David Yates, who from here on out, he's the director on all of the films, and he also directed all of the Fantastic Beast films. So
can't win them all.
No, but Order of the Phoenix, I think this is the third highest earning of the films, 942 million. Now, this is the one that I found was really interesting. Listen to everything, Daniel, that it released against. All right. Transformers, the first Transformers.
Wow. Okay.
Pirates 3 at World's End. Bourne Ultimatum, third one.
Yeah, it'd be the third.
And Rush Hour 3. Biggest movies of the year. Again, now we are full on in 2007. We're 1 year away from the beginning of the MCU. Like it's there. Like we are right there. And like our demographic is like primed for this. In 2007, how old are we? About
13?
13?
14.
Yeah. 13, 14. Like we are there for these films. Like we are the demographic. And this is the first time for Order of the Phoenix that I remember buying the game, buying the book, the code in the back of the book to go see the movie. And it was, they were obviously released like a little bit out of order, but I bought the book for this later. So I didn't buy them when they were coming out, but they re-released Order of the Phoenix with like the Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson version of the cover. And it came with a ticket for the movie. And I remember my dad just going to Sam's Club and getting me this book. And there was like a pallet, and he's like, we're going to sell this pallet at midnight. And it was like 7 o'clock. My dad's like, I'm not waiting until midnight. So he took a box cutter, opened up the box, and just took one.
Damn.
And then we went, we bought it, we checked out, and the guy's like, I don't care, whatever, like just buy it. So he charged it. But this is the first time that I remember like the Harry Potter moment. Like this is when I remember
of it.
Thank you. The phenomenon of Harry Potter really hitting is with Order of the Phoenix. And again, releasing against like Transformers, which I went and saw immediately. Pirates, which I saw. Bourne Ultimatum, we saw. Rush Hour, we saw. Like we were like in this machine watching all these movies, and Harry Potter was the cream of the crop of these. And this is really when we start seeing more of like the rebellion. A lot of the isolation of our characters starts happening here. We also get the formation of Dumbledore's army, the prophecy, Voldemort's motives, the battle of the Ministry of Magic, and of course we get Umbridge and the death, spoiler alert, of Sirius Black. Yeah. I feel like, to me, while I do truly love Goblet of Fire, like it's probably my favorite, I think this is the most important film of the franchise.
I agree. This is like the linchpin, especially with the prophecy. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the books. I'm sure you are, but
I just told you my dad stole one from Sam's Club.
This book really is like where like the story kind of like really leans in. I feel like this is where they just like slam their foot on the gas pedal. For me, this is my favorite film of the series. This is it.
Oh, really? This one?
Order of the Phoenix. For whatever reason, it's just this is the one that I remember reading the most. This is the one that I connected to for whatever reason most. And it's just, there's 8 films to choose from, but this is the one that like stuck with me the longest for whatever reason. But this is like the Room of Requirement one. This is the one where Harry has this little crush on Cho Chang. There was a lot in this.
Problematic.
A little problematic.
Could have named her Jenny. Literally anything else. Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you had Norm from Cheers naming all of these ethnic people. but even better, we got J.K. Rowling. So, yeah, again, truly one of the more important films, The Order of the Phoenix, I feel, to the entirety of the franchise. With the introduction of David Yates, who would direct the rest of the films, you really start seeing, and I don't mean this like negatively, because I'm sure David Yates is a great person, but this is when you really stop seeing, like, to me, the artistry behind Harry Potter, and it's like, let's just move the story along and get to the last movie. And he's the perfect like person for this. To use a sports analogy, I'm sorry for everyone, but he's a journeyman, which means he's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but he may win you a couple games, and he's good enough to get you through the season. He's not a Tom Brady. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. Not a, he's no one special, but he can get you from A to B if he needs to. So sorry for the sports talk, everyone. But David Yates is a pretty generic director. Just, you don't believe me? Just look at his body of work after this. That's outside of Harry Potter. And this, what I also found interesting about this movie was the fame starts really weighing on our main characters of Daniel Radcliffe, and especially like Emma Watson, who, I don't know if you know this, Daniel, she considered leaving after this movie because
I do remember hearing that she was like considering leaving the franchise. I wasn't sure which film it came at.
Yeah, it was this movie. It was during Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix. Sorry, it was during Order of the Phoenix because her character, rightfully so, one being the only girl in like this trio, right? Like, and majoritively, like, of the main cast of characters, it's mostly men. And if there were women, they were older women. So she had felt very isolated. And that's how her character's supposed to feel. She's supposed to feel very isolated, like she's the intelligent one of the group. And that really weighed on her because she's been doing this character since she was 11. And by this point, she's what, 16, 17? So she just felt like she was like, I'm putting words in her mouth, but like maybe like a little depressed, like really sad, very anxious, because while everyone was having these great moments on set, like Fred and George and whoever, like all of these people, she doesn't get those moments. And it really started weighing on her. And she considered leaving, but then she thought, well, it's going to be weird to watch someone else be Hermione instead of me. Because J.K. Rowling had already told her, like, you make it through the series. Spoiler alert again, but like, we need you throughout the whole series. And obviously, I mean, at this point, I don't know of anyone else who could have been her. Like, I don't.
And yeah, that I think that speaks to it too, is that like these people all like did this cast, like they were all such well cast that yeah, like I couldn't see anybody else playing these characters, and that's what makes me kind of scared for this HBO reboot. That it's an uphill battle.
I didn't want to bring it up. I was like, maybe we'll bring it up at the end, but I was like, I don't even know.
We could touch on it for sure.
Yeah, that may be another show, but
yeah, absolutely. But it goes to show, like, they all performed this so well that like those are hard shoes to fill.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is also the first movie not to utilize any natural, organic British locations. Everything was filmed in a studio. Now, this is largely in part due to that Harry Potter. Mono Patron is real bad. Harry Potter was so big at this point that like you can't film anything out in public.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, they're the most famous trio ever, and so that is like largely why they did. But also, they're saving a ton of money. Like, they don't have to pay and do it. Like, it sucks, and you can tell if you watch these movies. You're like, it feels a little. It feels a little copy and paste around, but not as lived in. But again, pretty interesting. So the movie was released actually 10 days before the final Deathly Hallows book, which I didn't realize how far ahead the books were before the movie's coming out. Like, imagine how stressed Daniel, the Warner Brothers execs, were. Like, holy shit, we have to get ahead of this. Or like, what if the last book sucks?
Well, I know anecdotally, when the first movie came out, the first 3 books were already out. and it was a phenomenon. People loved it. It was like, when is this movie coming out? People were excited for it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until after like she saw the reception of like these new, because there was a good gap between like Order of the Phoenix and Goblet of Fire. And I think that really helped inform like what she was going to do with the series moving forward. I feel like that's where she kind of amped up like, oh, the prophecy and, you know, more of the lore. And there was rumors that she was going to kill off Ron at one point.
Yes, I saw that. And then she was like, I don't know if you read, but she was she being J.K. Rowling, or they did film a lot of that outside. Yeah, a little bit later on, once we started getting to like Half-Blood Prince, they went back to like natural filming. Also, David Yates does some good stuff. Like he does some truly great stuff during Harry Potter, but he's just the most vanilla. Anyways, apparently she was in a really bad place in her life, and she was like, this needs to I need to get this out of me and put it into my writing. And poor Ron was getting the blunt end of that, and she opted against it and said like she always felt like none of them were ever going to die. But we were real close to having Ron die, I think, in the Half-Blood Prince.
And like that would have been an emotional like gut punch, right? To lose one of the main trio. But I think it speaks more for it that they all make it out of the entire story. And it really does kind of like bolster up that like power of friendship kind of angle, you know?
Yeah. I was reading that the only character from the beginning that J.K. Rowling knew was going to make it through the entire time was Hagrid.
Dang.
Because she wanted Hagrid to live with the successes and failures of being able to protect or not protect the trio.
Oh my God, what a monster.
Yeah, I know. For a lot of reasons. But
you know, that tracks because Robbie Coltrane was the first person cast. So Hagrid was the first person cast for the movies.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so she was, so Hagrid was pretty important to her, and the characters, of course. So like I thought that was like so messed up but so brilliant, like to like have that anchor in your mind the whole time. Like Hagrid is the one who has to live through all of this.
Yeah.
So also what I found, because I'm a bit of I'm a bit of an Oscars slut. This is one of only 2 Harry Potter movies not to be nominated actually for an Academy Award. The other one was The Chamber of Secrets. So all of the other films, so 6 out of the 8 were nominated for various awards, never acting or director or anything, but all of the what we call below the line awards, being costume design, sound mixing, everything. Which we'll get to some of the Oscars successes a little bit later, but yeah, pretty interesting film. Again, one of the most important, as we had mentioned. So moving on into, honestly, Daniel, this feels like the Malcolm in the middle of them, like the middle child.
Really?
The Half-Blood Prince, which was released July 15th, 2009, again, directed by David Yates, made $941 million. Again, we're full on the franchise train here. It released alongside Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, The Hangover, which at the time it didn't know, but it was going to be a trio of films. G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra. And it really, really is the film to me that I watched again and I remember the least of.
You know what?
Cats.
Sorry. Yeah, no, there would sound like there was like somebody was trying to open my door. I'll say this film feels like almost like the act 2 or like the end of act 2 when it comes to the films, because like for me it's like when Dumbledore dies, this is where almost like the story kind of like really kicks off, if that makes sense. But yeah, for this one, this is like one of the only ones that I like cried in the theaters. Dumbledore dies, then McGonagall, she raises her wand, and then all the other students, they raise their wands. It lights up, that one. Music. That killed me in theaters. I was 15, 16, in the throes of puberty. My hormones, my emotions, they were all over the place, and this movie just got me.
I don't understand why I'm sad. Yeah, so some of the interesting plot progressions here is we discover the idea of Horcruxes, which also say what you want about J.K. Rowling, which you can say quite a bit, but man, she could brand and she could name shit like Horcruxes. Ironically, right? She has no problems discerning between those two very different things. Anyways, I don't want to get started. But the discovery of Horcruxes, we learn about like the mystery of the Half-Blood Prince. Surprise, surprise, it's Snape. This movie's pretty Snape heavy, which I enjoyed. And then, of course, as Daniel mentioned, we have the death of Brian Albus Dumbledore via Snape. Are you okay?
Yeah, the cats are making noise over here. I don't know if we can pick that up, but there's just a ton of sound going. Because like my cats like to like parkour off the walls. I was telling Paul this,
right.
And she'll like sprint up the stairs and just kick right off the wall.
Just double jumps.
Yeah, honestly, no, it feels like I'm like living with the a ninja cat, and she's the one that jumps up onto the chair. You'll see her here and there.
Okay. That's Kita, right?
That's Kita. Yeah, she's a nightmare.
I will say the Half-Blood Prince, the only thing I really remember from this movie, and I had to like make sure it wasn't a fever dream, was at least in LA or like the LA Times, they printed like Dumbledore dies. And they printed that
as like a spoiler or like as part of the
advert? It was after. It was a marketing tactic.
Oh.
But it looked like what's their newspaper called again? Do you remember
the Daily Prophet.
The Daily Prophet, yeah. So I remember them printing that and being like, well, that's a huge spoiler if you haven't seen the movie, but it had been like a month. But I thought that was pretty cool. But this is the movie to me that I just remember the least. Like, I don't know why. Like, I think because for me, Order of the Phoenix is so important, and Deathly Hallows I knew was the last book and movie. I was like, I just want to get to the end.
And see, for me, this one feels like it could be the start of a trilogy, right? I feel like Half-Blood Prince to Deathly Hallows 2 could be its own story. Like, it's so different from like all it really has in common is the big bad. Like that's really like you could just pluck as far as everything else goes, like it's all like lore, it's all set up, it's all prequel. And then from here on, I feel like this could be its own, like this could have been the whole story. Because you get the Horcruxes, you have a reason, you've got like motive for Voldemort trying to get Harry.
Means, motive, and opportunity.
Means, motive, and opportunity, yes. And then you get like the emotional gut punch with Snape and Lily Potter, and you get the history of like why Snape hated Harry Potter's dad, and Harry Potter's dad was like a jock and a jerk, and
I kind of love that, like that Harry Potter's dad was an asshole.
Dude,
like
me too. And I feel like it goes to show that, like, you know, Harry doesn't know this man, right? Like he didn't know his parents growing up, and like he has this like idolized version of them in his head, whereas like Snape was a victim.
Yeah, he was like Snape was just trying to relax, listen to The Cure, and he was getting his ass beat by this handsome jock with glasses, a bruiser, may I add. And he's probably just looks at Harry and is like, I'm gonna beat your ass.
Dude, he probably hates his ass. Like,
I know. Could you imagine if you were in love with your bully's wife and then you have to protect your bully's son from your ex-boss?
From your ex-boss. That's a great point. Yeah, and who you like swore an oath to, I don't know, ride or die for.
I'm not that strong. I just killed a kid. You know what? I'll deal with it.
There are so many like moving staircases at Hogwarts. One little accident, who knows? There's no cameras.
Who's to say? Oops. How would they know?
Who saw the painting? No. What, you're gonna trust the painting over me?
Your goddamn mouth. I swear to God, I'll set you on fire. Hear that, Godric? Or was the nearly headless? Nearly headless.
Nearly headless Nick.
You want to keep running your mouth? You're going to be full headless. Do you understand me? Yeah. So this was a pretty interesting movie, but again, only Harry Potter film nominated for best cinematography, which I agree with. I went back and rewatched, and I was like, pretty sweet. like pretty
When
sweet cinematography.
When Dumbledore falls from like the tower, oh God,
that's the point I was going to bring up. Like that's like really great, and it was like a full tracking shot that was done horizontally, but then they obviously just flipped it vertically.
Right.
That was pretty sweet. I did add this noted because I thought it was hilarious, but Warner Brothers pushed this movie was supposed to come out in 2008. They filmed them back to back, but because of editing and a couple of, I think there was like some strikes, they had to push it to 2009. So Warner Brothers got death threats and bomb threats.
Dang.
and
an 11-year-old scribble, like kids were like writing these in.
The reason I find it funny is like I've met a lot of Harry Potter fans. It's hard to get them to do anything, but they will bomb your office if you delay it. It's not that funny because we're talking about a bombing, but thinking about a bunch of like poli-sci majors who are just like in between winter session thinking they're gonna bomb Warner Brothers. It's just so funny.
Pretty scary. I'm sure there was a bunch of like bomb threats written in like or like spells written down on pieces of paper submitted.
Yeah, it's just people just trying to. I couldn't think of it. Doing just trying to like kill Warren. It's like I'm going to call the police.
Just someone closing the curtain.
Hey, Randall. Yeah, you can hurt him a little bit. It's fine.
Rough him up just a little.
Just a little bit. But this was and I again, the weight of these films really starts to hit these actors. Daniel Radcliffe has gone on record saying this movie was not his favorite, saying that his performance was single note and that he was very, very complacent during this film. And that's a way that I can kind of, I don't know, maybe I felt like his film was very complacent. Also, apparently Daniel Radcliffe, when he was however old at this age, had a pretty bad drinking problem. Like he was like 19 or 20.
Yeah. He's gone on record saying like the scene where he's like, where they're burying the spider, he doesn't remember filming it. Like he was so drunk at the time of filming that like it's a blur to him.
And you can tell he looks like when you go back and watch it and you watch him in just any other scene, you can see how drunk Daniel Radcliffe is.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad, but yeah, I agree. This is like definitely as far like in total, this is the story with like a lot of weight to it, but
yeah, it
really does. Like I feel like you said, Order of the Phoenix Down. It's all kind of homogenized. It's all kind of like it blends together.
Yeah, and mind you, the first movie, Daniel Radcliffe made $1 million. Didn't know if they're getting a second one, even though they filmed them back to back. You know, they didn't know if it was going to get picked up. Second movie, he made $1 million, maybe a little bit more. By this time, Daniel, he was making $10 to $15 million a movie. The third, the very last movie, he made $50 million. Wow. So, like, what is he going to do? Like, he's in a cocoon of success. And he was just coping with not being able to live a normal life with drinking. And it's this movie that you can tell. And just thinking about him watching Half-Blood Prince and being like, oh my God, this was such a horrible time in my life. It's like looking back, and again, all of you can maybe relate. You look back at an old picture of your life and be like, man, I was not in a healthy place at that point. And it's really hard to see. And imagine that, but for hundreds of millions of people across the world. Knowing that and rewatching these movies, it made me a little bit more emotional, but not like for anything that happened in the movies, not even like Dumbledore dying, because I'd already seen that. But I was just really, really sympathetic and empathetic to what the actors were going through.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like you start your life, you know, let's say 10 years old, not start your life, but you know, you're thrust into fame so early on that like immediately, like there's scrutiny, you're living under a microscope from 10 on, you know, and at this point they were like, what, 15, 16, 18, maybe. Yeah. I can't imagine how tough that might be.
I'm so glad, Daniel, that all of the weird, dumb shit that we did between 15 and 17, 13 and 17 was not filmed like people are now. Thank God.
I would never want to live like, I mean, you've got like memes or people that are like, they'll show up on TikTok and they're like, oh, guess what meme I was? And I don't know, it would be some like random throwaway Vine or something that
Oh
went
yeah.
crazy viral back in like 2013, 14.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, like they're like itching for that fame again. But
Yeah.
thank God we escaped that.
Yes, we escaped fame. So, all right. Well, let's move into part one of the last book, which is The Deathly Hallows, part one, released November 19th, 2010. Daniel.
I remember this. We went to the midnight screening.
We did. We did. This was a
You remember?
This was a good time.
It was Deathly Hallows 1 and 2 that we attended the midnight screenings. And back-to-back years, the projector died or
It died. I know.
Wrong. We didn't get out of that. It was so rough. We didn't get out of the theater till like 3 or 4 in the morning because they're like, we're gonna restart it. We're gonna try it again. So and so's film just ended, so we're gonna bring their reel over. And like it was so bad.
I'm gonna throw a Molotov cocktail up there if you just don't solve this. I don't know why. Just stop talking and just fix it.
But we got those free return passes.
We sure did, and we used them to watch the movie again. Deathly Hallows Part 1 made $960 million. It released alongside some pretty big films and one not so big film, The Social Network, Paranormal Activity 2, and Tron Legacy. Also, this one, my least favorite poster. I think it's the worst one.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah,
this
I feel like this is, and this is what was so crucial because they were up against like Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Breaking Dawn Part 2 and all that. Like they were really fighting Twilight at this
in that
point.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, in this era, this was like the era of like the young adult films. Like Hunger Games, I think was like about to come out or was in production or something. The Divergence series was out, Twilight. It was all about
I think we had just gotten Thor as well. Like
2010, yeah, probably. The MCU was just starting, getting off the ground, This was where they really needed to come at it like full force, and they kind of phoned it in,
Right. Nowhere is safe. Yeah, it's funny because like the movie, which I feel is pretty good. I like the first part more than the second part. But the poster is not representative of how good the film is. And so let's see, we've got the quest for the Horcruxes, the destruction of the Locket Horcrux, I believe, with the Sword of Gryffindor they use again. And then of course the very, very sad death of Dobby.
That
I will say that scene though is one of the best things that David Yates has ever done.
Oh, really?
Where he's got the handheld cam and he's like, Harry's running and he's got like the shaky cam like next to Harry and he's like crying, he's emotional, and it's not so static in one note. That scene is brilliant. Like I mean, I don't know. Again, Daniel, you're more of like the technical film person and I just talk louder. But I think that scene truly is art. Like, and that's one thing I was like, I don't know what it is. Like maybe they just let David Yates cook more. Like they just let him go
in the simplest terms. Yeah. And it's a scene where it's like, there's so much emotional weight behind it that like you really need to do it justice. Otherwise, I mean, like the chapter in the book, it kind of leaves you hanging, right? The chapter ends and it's like, it talks about like the dagger she throws, right, and how it just hits Dobby, and then the chapter like ends, and so you're like, oh my god, what happened? Is he okay? Like you're flipping, and so for the way they filmed it, where she throws it, it's slow mo. It's like it's very much like one of those if you know, like what's about to happen, and there's still no way to like brace you for it. And those fuckers, they like really bring back Dobby in that last like third act. As like, oh my god, remember this lovable character? Remember how goofy he was, how silly he was?
Yeah, kill
him. But good on them for not being afraid to like, really go for it.
I don't know. It's still just Dobby. Like he's fine. He's not like Pikachu. He's still kind of like an ugly house elf.
Yeah, he is kind of ugly, and at this point,
he's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
I'm not going like anti-Dobby slander, but
I know what is wrong with you. This is not what we discussed.
I mean, like I would have been more upset if like Buckbeak died.
And see, I wouldn't be.
I don't know what that says about us.
He's a big horse chicken.
You're
Take
a
him.
big horse chicken. But so this is the only Harry Potter
That's a
movie
very good point.
also it makes you recall that Harry was such as a child when they bring Dobby back up. Oh yeah, that's true.
Very true. And you
Right,
recall
because
the
you do
childhood
forget
friend?
that in these movies that he is like you're like, oh, this is an adult fighting this other grown ass monster
Mhm.
adult. And you're like, oh no, he's like 16,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
17.
It is like a hard truth that like they were supposed to be like children. I mean, yeah, you like
Yeah.
you said, like they look a lot older,
Mm-hmm.
but
That's
yeah,
part
like
two.
you said, they're supposed to be like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah. I also found it interesting though that this was the only movie, and this is why I like this movie, is because it really like sets the tone. It's the only movie not to feature Hogwarts at all.
Oh, I don't think I ever really
The
like keyed in on that.
Hogwarts Lake is in it in the end when they take the Elder Wand away from Dumbledore's
Yeah.
grave, I think. But Hogwarts is not in this film, and to me, I was like, oh, like stakes are high. Like I always felt like Hogwarts was like this safe place
Yeah.
where it felt like when you're playing tag and you get back to your base, you're like, okay, well, I know what everything is here. And like I felt like the characters were always safe there. And so for the characters to never go back to Hogwarts in this film, it just felt very uncomfortable. Which again,
Mhm.
David Yates did a great job in these last two films of really making you uncomfortable and giving you a little bit of anxiety.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, definitely like they're like them on the run, it definitely the whole thing felt unsettling. It felt like out of place, isolated.
Yeah.
But it works, it works for like what they were where they were in the story, or they were on the run. They were like officially like Voldemort was back into power. He was like a real threat. And now it like there was no more just waiting it out at Hogwarts. Like it was either do or die at this point.
Yep. And the one thing I remember about this movie is just the story around the second film of part two, of everyone being like, part one is out. That's great. Where's part two? Like, we want it immediately. And part two was not released. Deathly Hallows part two was not released until July 15th, 2011. And by far, this film, part two, Daniel, is the highest earning.
Yeah.
In its global gross, it made $1.3 billion and was the highest earning movie of all time for a little bit. And then it got dethroned by Avatar. And eventually everything got dethroned by Endgame. But it was the highest earning Warner Brothers film until Barbie came along. So this movie really had some staying power. And again, it was the fist of Khonshu of everything. It was just the biggest film of the year, even though it released alongside Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Captain America: First Avenger, Cars 2, and X-Men: First Class. Which, say what you want, I like First Class, but
First Class is great, but Captain America 1, Cars 2, Transformers 3, like they're all pretty mediocre.
Okay, the first Captain America is pretty good. Cars 2 is great.
We don't love a period piece.
Okay. We're not doing this right now. We'll do our car show in season 14 of Fandom Social. But highest rated of all of them, highest earning. This is really like the crown jewel. Also, I think one of the pinnacles of being able to land the plane of a franchise that not a lot of the franchises really, really nailed down. But of course, we get the Battle of Hogwarts, Snape's redemption, and Harry's sacrifice and final confrontation. That's like on that bridge at Hogwarts. I can like see it. Even before I'd seen these movies again, like I can still see that final scene of them like fighting.
The green and the red,
yeah, and just everyone just like in a circle, like you're doing like you're playing body shots in like a bathroom somewhere, and
like a breakdance battle,
breakdance battles, whatever. And this was really it. I felt satisfied with the way this movie ended. How did you feel with?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I feel like this, like you said, like this is like the best way they could have landed the plane. This is the 8th film in a lead of franchises, right? Or in a series of films. And like to be the capstone, it really did its job. I don't love the old person makeup that they went for at the very end, right? But it's the last 30 seconds of the film.
Yeah, Ginny's like 31. She's not 56.
Yeah.
They like gray. Like, who would give someone gray hair at 30? That's ridiculous. And yeah, it's just, most of the events in the movie, and which I didn't realize, like, it has its own like training day type of deal. But from the raid on Gringotts to the Battle of Hogwarts to that final scene and him walking into is it not Fangorn Forest is Lord of the Rings. Forbidden Forest is Forbidden Forest.
I think it was like the Dark Forest too at some point.
Yeah, something like that. Like that, it all happens in a day or like 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
and there's a lot that goes on. Harry dies at one point, right?
Like Training Day.
I haven't seen Training Day.
Well, it all takes place in over a day. Jesus
wow. Well, I suppose it was in the title. That's on me. But yeah, this is where Harry dies. This is where he's revealed to be the final Horcrux, which that was, crazy. To this day, I still don't really understand that too much, but you start breaking into the details of the magic, and it all kind of falls apart. So taking it for what it is, I really like the finale. I think they landed the plane as best they could. It really it landed, I think. I feel like it was such a good capstone on the series.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think there was a better way they could have done it. There's definitely a worst way they probably could have ended it, but I don't think there was a better way. Like and by that I mean there's not a way that anyone can really ever end a series that's going to satisfy everyone.
Yeah,
maybe with the exception of
something this big.
Exactly. Like this was the biggest thing in the world, and so I thought it ended pretty well. And another thing that I found interesting was it's the shortest.
Which I had no idea. That is crazy. And
just over 2 hours.
And that's still that. I feel like that's still a decently long runtime, right? 2 hours, 10 minutes is nothing to shake a tail at. But
yeah, they were all averaging at about 2.5 hours. And this is the shortest, which I'm happy with because this is the second half of the book, which I think it was the last 6 chapters or 7 chapters. So, they didn't really have a lot. They were really kind of threading the needle here with a lot.
They didn't need to stretch it out.
Exactly. So, I mean, it was a moment in time. And I remember this movie specifically, Daniel, when we went to go see it, and the goddamn projector broke again. And we were like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And
it was the first few seconds in the film too. Voldemort is lowered, he grabs the wand, and then something happens. I forget what happens, but the theater went quiet. And obviously for the first viewing, everyone was kind of what's going on? Is it supposed to be like this? Is that we were all kind of waiting it out. And then you hear the whisper start, and then the chatter starts, and then sure enough, the employees come in and they're like, so sorry folks, yada yada, we're gonna have to try it again.
Do you think they were messing with us? Do you think they were older adults like us picking on 16, 17-year-olds because we were just so annoying?
It could be, because I don't know if you remember when this was back in the day when there was no reserve seating and you had your ticket, but you had no assigned seat. And so I think when the crowd broke, they finally got the okay, all right, the 9 p.m. showing, come on in.
Hold.
Yeah, it was just a stampede. So who knows? Maybe they were trying to mess with us. But Dwayne asked if it was the same theater.
I think so.
It was the Winnetka Pacific Theater at the time,
which is now owned by Amazon, and it's just a parking spot for Amazon trucks.
Yeah, it's just a warehouse now.
Yeah, honestly, maybe for the best. They couldn't get the Harry Potter movies right. How are they going to run a franchise? But yeah, I mean, that was the end. That was the end of it. As to me, I just remember it ending and being like, huh. I was like, maybe I'm broken inside, because I didn't really cry or anything.
No, me either.
I just remember it ending and being like, okay.
And for a while, I thought maybe I had aged out of its its demographic. Maybe I had missed the train, so to speak. On the adults that it was catering to, or the young adults rather.
I mean, in 2011, we were 17, 18. We were like right there. I didn't even sit next to my friend who I went to the midnight showing with. I sat next to some stranger, and she comforted me when I started crying over a sad scene.
Aw, I feel that.
It's like, oh, they're there.
You're
They're
there.
crying. You're crying on my raisinets. Please stop. But this was also the final. So this is why I thought this was interesting. This was the final movie to be nominated for the Academy Awards in 2012. But most interestingly, the franchise of Harry Potter has never won an Oscar or an Academy Award.
That is
Ever.
crazy, because I would imagine they'd win for like set design or costuming or something, one of the below the line awards. But for them not to win anything was kind of nuts.
Yeah, I do find that to be, like normally the Oscars, which.
Damn.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Me either. No.
I don't remember that at all. I do remember the Transformers trailer getting me super hyped during one of the Harry Potter movies, but
really?
I don't remember the Dark Knight Rises trailer. God, that was happening that time too. We lived in the heyday of franchises, I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, no, we really did. But we were so spoiled back then, and we had no idea what we had. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, the MCU is just clawing for relevancy again.
Yeah. And you know what? We're going to give it to them. We're going to do it single-handedly on this show. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting film. I think at the end, I don't know why, but like for me, like I think the franchise ended somewhere else. Also, I was like 17, 18 doing 17 or 18-year-old things, just trying to be cool. I'm like, I'm not super sad about this movie, like
hood rat things with your friends.
I was trying to do hood rat things with my friends, just like Harry Potter. That's all I wanted.
What's more hood rat than running away from school?
And fighting an old man. And killing him.
Yeah, he was a certified murderer.
He was.
The age of like 16, 17.
Yeah, he would just pull up his shirt. He's got that fucking thing on him. His wand. Yeah, I remember so much about this film. I remember so much about this franchise, but it's weird that I just have these like pockets of memory because I mean we were in high school and middle school and so much is happening in our brains at that time that it's hard to compartmentalize so much of this. But like the Harry Potter franchise in general, just like even though it's one of those things where it's like I don't consider myself a Potterhead. I don't know if you do.
I really don't. But I used to be.
You used to be a pretty big Harry Potter fan.
I did. I read the books. I remember going on a family trip to like Mexico, and I read, I think it was Prisoner of Azkaban, in maybe 2.5 days. Just sitting there, just chilling, just reading page after page. I remember there's a part where Hagrid, I think it's when Hagrid is, they've like condemned Buckbeak to death, and Hagrid is like writing a letter to Harry or something, and like the whole effect of the page is that Hagrid has cried on this letter that he's written. And I was looking at this page thinking like, I fucked this book up. And it was my cousin's, and he lent it to me. And I was like, oh my God, like I messed up this book. Like he's going to kill me. And then like, I went on a couple more pages and, then it explains like, oh, Hagrid's tears had even smudged the writing or something.
You're like, ew, I don't want to touch another man's tears. It's disgusting.
I know.
Yeah. Well, because of cake. But yeah, I hold this franchise pretty fondly. I don't know how everyone else feels looking back on it now, much, much later, but this is a massive franchise. Like not to understate it, not to tell people what they don't already know, but like if you really want to look at the trajectory of the box office and Hollywood, of how Harry Potter just completely not only deviated the entirety of the box office, but it dragged it along and to like try to keep up. And the importance of Harry Potter in pop culture again cannot be understated. And it's still pretty important to me. Like I went and I did my house and I went on harrypotter.com and that one's free. You can pay us for the next one, harrypotter.com. But I went and did my Patronus and I looked up like my house and who was it Helgleen Hufflepuff was and whatever shit. Like it's interesting. It's a world that's lived in. So you go in and you're you don't feel so obligated to go from A to B to C to D. You can kind of just like walk around and enjoy it and do what you want. There's like potion classes. I had a whole bit in here about terrible Harry Potter products that I wanted to showcase. Of I don't know how to say this. Mattel released a vibrating wand that you would sit on, and it would react to how fast you moved, and it would vibrate on the left to make you move to the left and the right. And for some reason, Mattel decided we should recall this vibrating wand that children sit on.
I do remember it was like the Harry Potter wand controlled like obstacle course. Do you remember that? Yeah, you remember that. I think you got it for Christmas one year, and like
it was like magnetic, right?
Something like that. Yeah, it like the whole purpose was to move like a ball around this like circle of like obstacles, and it was very like Quidditchy, and it had like a spell book portion, the whole thing.
And there was like the Quidditch game that was released, I think, in like 2011. You could play against Japan. You could play against
Quidditch World Cup.
Quidditch World Cup. Thank you. And I played that game a lot. Like, there was a lot of weird stuff that Harry Potter released, and to get to the point where it is now, where it's basically just like house clothes and charms and stuff you can put on your car keys. So
I feel like nowadays it's more of like a horoscope almost. Like it's so well established, and like you get people saying like, oh, that's such a Slytherin thing of you to say, you know, where you could swap that out for like Scorpio or Libra or whatever. But
literally
it's a branding thing. It's a marketing thing. And it's scary to think like how big it really is. I mean, there's the Harry Potter studio tour like in Tokyo or in the UK. Like you can go visit like all the set pieces, and it's huge and it's global.
I would like that. I think I would like seeing, just from like a film perspective, seeing some of those props. Anyways, again, you know, with the release and the announcements that we're going to be getting for the new TV show for the Harry Potter books and franchise, like, it is important to remember sort of where a lot of these started. And I feel, you know, the relevancy of Harry Potter really started with the movies. People can argue with me and say it started with the books. I don't really think you could have one without the other, truly. But I think, you know, the books were good, and people already loved them, but they wouldn't be Harry Potter without the success of the films and people being able to look at Daniel Radcliffe and seeing like, that's Harry. So the TV show has got quite the mountain to climb to even be considered moderately successful.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, I feel like it's going to be one of those projects that gets a season 1 and then just tanks.
Yeah.
We'll hold out for hope.
I don't know. I mean, Percy Jackson had a similar thing, and people seem to like the first season. People being people under the age of 20, you know, who grew up with those books. We'll see. The only people really buying a lot of Harry Potter stuff for merch are millennials our age. So seeing a bunch of kid actors be Harry Potter again is not interesting to me. So
yeah,
I'm good. But someone will love it. Maybe you will love it. And with that, we love you. Thank you guys for watching. Again, this is our last show of the year. Thank you guys again so much. We will be back. What day, Daniel? The 6th.
January 6th.
Yeah, nothing else going on that day, we hope. So Daniel's going on vacation. I don't know where he said he's going to the East Coast.
I have a trip to DC planned. Unrelated entirely. We're gonna go see the Smithsonian or something.
I have all that bear mace you wanted for some reason.
And the tiki torches.
And the tiki torches. I don't know what kind of weird thing is happening there. But yeah, so we're taking next week off. We'll be back January 6th with pop culture news and headlines. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen between now and then. Studios like to just drop a lot of news in between what they call the box office dead zone right now. But this is actually one of the better Christmases, I feel, for movies. We've got like Baby Girl, Complete Unknown, and Nosferatu. Go see Nosferatu. It's amazing, please. Complete Unknown, watch it, catch it when you're streaming. Baby Girl, I haven't seen, so I'm excited for that. But
pretty good roundup.
Pretty good roundup. But thank you all so much for watching us round up the Harry Potter films. We appreciate you guys. Daniel, thank you so much for agreeing to watch all these for me. Next time we'll do all of the Bridget Jones movies like you wanted, followed by the Starship Trooper films. Daniel is a man who contains multitudes. So Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you guys for joining us all year. And we'll see you guys in 2025. And when you go into 25, remember 2025, remember to like what you love what you like, and don't be a dick about it.
And
Bye, everyone.
I say, mischief managed.
Mischief manage. No.